Podcast. 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 Can you look each other in the eye, or is it like I got to stay in my corner, man? This is gnarly.
I could look him in the eye, but he can't look me in the eye.
Yeah, there it is. Jared Mees, Briar Bauman. We have a showdown, winner take all, rivals with history, both friends and foes this weekend. I know it's not motocross and supercross, but this is the type of racing we always like to see, right? Progressive American Flat Track will have their finale Friday night, Charlotte Motor Speedway. And it's come down to this. The points between Briar Bauman and Jared Mees, who you just saw there, are so close that whoever wins the race will essentially win the title. That is exciting enough alone. But what I will try to do on this episode of the Exhaust Podcast is to unearth the history with these two riders together. I can paint it as simply as I possibly can right now. Mees, five-time champion, was dominating this series in 17 and 18. Really, the only thing left for him to do was break some records as far as wins and titles in the series. But then Bauman, who is his understudy, his protege, who is learning from him, training with him, riding with him during the week, suddenly caught fire. And then Bauman became the new champion of the series and then repeated again in 2020 and was going for 3 straight titles until Mees, improbably coming back from injury this year, has pieced together a 4-race win streak to get the points lead back going into our final round. So these are two riders who no longer really have a working relationship, and now they're fighting for the ultimate prize and winner take all in the finale. This is a great story. And the best part is, everybody, listen, guys like Briar Bauman and Jared Mees, they do so little media. They don't get as much scrutiny and attention as the Supercross guys, that they're very unfiltered and unguarded with their comments, as you just heard from Mees there. So you'll get a lot more from these two riders in this podcast than you're used to. So stick around. And by the way, if you're trying to make predictions of who's going to win this finale, here's the crazy thing about Flat Track. Yes, Bauman's won the last 4 races, but they were on mile-long, very fast tracks. We're going to a half mile in Charlotte. It's totally different. Really hard to pick a favorite. That makes it that much more exciting. Real quick, let's shout out our sponsors here on the Racer X Exhaust Podcast. I am Jason Weigandt. Thanks to Yoshimura. They've been with us since day one. Check out the RS12 exhaust system for your motorcycle, be it a street bike or dirt bike, such as Honda's new 2022 CRF 450R. If you have a Yamaha, a Kawasaki, a Suzuki, a KTM, a Husqvarna, a Gas, they've got it for you on the motocross side, and they love street bike stuff too. That's where their heritage is. Yoshimura-rd.com. Also brought to you by Cardo Systems, the Pack Talk communicator, rider to rider, mechanic to rider, coach to rider, any combination. You would be amazed how much your entire riding experience could change if you have helmet to rider communication. And it's crystal clear. I've had people call me while riding down the interstate on street bikes, and Bluetooth sounds like they're calling me from their car. It's no different. That's how good the Cardo Systems works. For me, I can take it out and tell my kid what to do when he rides instead of yelling, stand up, get on the pegs on the top of my lungs. Go to cardosystems.com and learn more. We'll even give you 15% off your order. Type in RX15 when you're checking out. And also brought to you by Onyx Maps, 500,000 miles of mapped out trails, whether you're riding dirt bikes or if you're a dual sport guy, just back roads in general, mountain bikes, hiking, you name it, they've got it for you. And it's far superior to just using the Google Maps app on your phone. Because first of all, why is Google tracking trails? They don't care about that. And second of all, you can download the maps. So if you're out of service, you can still use them. Plus, they have waypoints, notes, public and private land, information on what the trail is like or where you can camp and do things like that. You're not going to get that with Google Maps. So check out onxmaps.com or go to OnX Off-Road in the App Store. That's onxmaps.com or OnX Off-Road in the App Store. Map out your next dirt bike, mountain bike, hiking trail, or wherever you want to go. Let's talk to our two combatants for this weekend's battle. We will start with Briar Bauman. Again, 5-time champion of the series, was fighting back from a knee injury this year. It appeared that Briar Bauman was the new guy. He was going to dominate for years. There was no way Mees was going to get this thing back. And he's got a possibility of doing it this weekend. Okay, Jared Mees, look, dude, when we had the Atlanta Super TT at the beginning of the year, you were injured. You barely were able to get any laps in at all. Did you think by the end of the season you'd be right there with a showdown to win this title? Were you thinking that at that point?
No, honestly, no. I mean, my injury was pretty severe, and how I felt in Atlanta, and then even shortly after Atlanta when I got back to race, and I was buried down in the points quite a bit. I think I was down to like fourth or something. And, obviously Bauman's the target, he's been the guy the last couple of years, and he was, quite a ways away from me, So, I think it was Weedsport this year where, I got the win there. He got like a sixth, and finally started feeling really good. And kind of looked down the schedule there and was like, man, if this goes right, and I could do this here, we can maybe be a threat here at the end of the year. And sure enough, it kind of worked out that way.
I can't even figure out how the math worked, because you've won a lot of the miles the last couple of years. Bauman has not won the miles. It just seemed like, well, wait, this is simple. If Mees just gets 4 of these miles together at the end of the year, he'll close the points. Why did that? Were there not enough miles in the previous years? Why did it work out this year where it didn't work in others?
Well, in 2019, we won all the miles. There were 6 of them, won them all. We had some breaks, some DNFs as well in 19 there. And then 2020, we only had 4 miles, and actually Bauman did beat me at 2 of the miles. And then, just had some things last year that, quite frankly, I didn't feel like went my way. And, nothing really you could put your finger on it. I guess at the end of the day, I just got beat. And then this year, we hung tough, I thought, at a lot of the races where, he was strong. We were right there behind him. And last year we were a couple spots behind him.
Got it.
So that was solid. And like I said, Weedsport, when he won, he got second the first night. I got third, and then the next night I won it. He got sixth. That was probably the turning point. I think after Weedsport, I was like Weedsport night 1, I was like 34 points down, and I was able to close it down to like 22. And then we went to Peoria, went up to 25. And then it was like, all right, we have 5 races left. 4 of them are miles. If I win all of them, I tie him at the end of the year and we win the championship. So far I won 4 out of the 5. And that was also considering Briar finishing second every race. And he's finished, I don't know, I think he's got 3 thirds and a second at these miles. So that allowed me to actually have a 4-point advantage. So just the way it's worked out so far this year.
So this is really one of those classic, like, you minimized the damage on your bad races, which allowed you to stay close enough. So when you got to your strengths, it was more of an advantage.
No, 100%. I mean, the famous saying is you win the championships on your bad days, and we had some bad days, other than Atlanta. We've basically been on the podium every race with the exception of Atlanta and then also Lima. Lima was a tough track on the knee, not as bad as like a couple weeks before. Like actually, I came from Oklahoma the week before, getting a third and also a win. Went into Lima and was hurting. Just the way you got to ride that track and just kind of like send it and let it all hang out. The knee wasn't ready to let it all hang out. Yeah. So I struggled at Lima, basically just suffered through it and got out of there with some points. Obviously, in the position I'm at right now, I'm very thankful I gutted it out there at Lima, because man, it was I was counting the time. It was a slow race for me, but I just kept clawing away or crawling at it and getting it done.
It kind of symbolizes, I feel like, the way you are, right? You've told me a million times, like, you're only there to win. Titles are the thing. Having fun, that's for other guys. You're focused on one thing, and that is being number one. And even though the last 2 years didn't go right for you, and then this year you have an injury, to me, that kind of symbolizes what you are. Like, you're still going to try as hard as you possibly can, no matter what the momentum says, the odds say, all that stuff. This kind of symbolizes to me, like, you just always keep trying as hard as you can anyway.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's never over till it's over. I've been at it for a long time, and anything could happen. And but I will say, when I was laying there first part of April and I was hurt, and I was just like, going to one doctor and they're saying, hey man, you're going to be down 6 months. I was just like, holy smokes, like this was gutting, especially after leaving the season opener in Barberville in the championship lead. And I felt great. I felt like we had a lot of good momentum. And then, that happened. That was pretty gutting for sure.
So you've been in this like showdown thing. I think you and Brian Smith kind of had this similar, like close in points going into the finale. Or that have been 2016, I think.
Yeah.
Does this experience help? You've won a lot of titles before. Do you think you have a little advantage just from the experience of a kind of a winner take all finale?
Yeah, I mean, one would hope so, right? I've been at this a lot. 16, it came down to the very last race, very last lap, actually, and we lost it. And I think about that race a lot, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I think we're going into a track. Charlotte is a really good track for me. I feel real wide, pretty big half mile. We were rolling really good last year on both days. And, I feel like when the pressure comes down on me and my back's against the wall is the best that I actually do perform. So for me, I'm looking forward to it. One win, lose, or draw, to be honest, I didn't think I'd be in this situation leading with one race to go with what I had going at the beginning of the year. So, I'm very happy with how I performed throughout the season and getting the wins and, getting the last 4 miles and stuff. Like I've had a great season. Yeah. Win, lose, or draw, but by all means, I want to win this damn thing.
Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of guys in your situation would be like, hey, the fact that I'm even in it is a bonus, so I have no pressure. But I don't know if you work that way. When you have the number one plate in front of you, you want it really bad. I don't think you're going to say it any other way.
No, I mean, it's, I can't lie and say, hey, I'm if it stopped right now, I'm happy with it. Well, obviously if it stopped right now, I'd be the champion, but
Right.
I want the thing. I worked really hard for it. I set my sights on it. I don't like to lose. I'll be straight up with you. I mean, no one likes to lose, right? But some people accept it a little bit better than others, and I'm not very good at it. But all honesty, like I said, I'm happy with way things are right now. They could be a lot worse, and it sounded like it was going to be a lot worse in the very, very beginning.
Okay, so the flat track paddock is always pretty tight knit. But then, so you and Brian Smith, who were, I think, buddies growing up and all that, you have this crazy title showdown in 16. You and Bauman used to be tight. Last couple of years have been battling for the title. Now it's really tense with a grand finale like this. How does that all work personality-wise? Do you guys just avoid each other? I don't know how it worked with you and Smith then or Bauman now. Can you look each other in the eye, or is it like, I got to stay in my corner, man? This is gnarly.
I could look him in the eye, but he can't look me in the eye.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of years, obviously everybody knows that, the relationship between Briar and I has just been rivals and tight. I mean, I don't really think there's one thing that, he might say something different, but there's nothing really one thing that I have a problem with him in. It's just, I see that, what's the word I'm looking for? Briar wears his emotions on his sleeve. You know what I mean? You can tell when I walk up into his bubble, he's bothered by it. You know what I mean? Like hell, you know what I mean? So that is, it's actually funny, like I enjoy it, but, he'll make eye contact with me and look right away, like we're 14 years old in 6th grade looking at, the girl that likes me, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But, it's funny, but there's nothing against that. It is what it is. Brian was a little bit older than me. We were really good friends, like Briar and I prior. And we dealt with it a little bit differently, I think. Like when we bumped into each other or whatnot, we talked and, socialized and whatnot. But, there was a moment there with Brian and I where, we probably weren't going to call one another to go eat dinner. But yeah, with Briar, there's not like a hate relationship by any means there at all. There's a lot of respect on my part to him. I want to beat him. He wants to beat me. I'm his main threat to take his plate. He's my main threat to keep the plate. So, there's that rivalness to it, but there's no bad blood by any means. It's just pure, hey, I want to beat you and you got what I want and you got what I had. And I want it back, and that's it. You know what I mean? There's nothing, there's no hard feelings there. I'm going to ride you hard, and he's going to ride me hard. I know that, and try to keep it as classy and as clean as we can.
Well, you kind of proved it, right? Because so then you and Brian Smith, you were tight. Then you get in this title fight. It's kind of a rivalry for a while, and now look at you. So can you just tell the story of how this turned out? So Brian Smith is retiring this year, and in his last race, you end up giving him one of your bikes, and then he actually helps you because he takes some points away. from Bauman.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight, everybody's probably like, I did it on purpose to try to get some points between Briar and I. And I mean, that was honestly just the bonus, right? I mean, the way I look at it going into this last race, I look at it as like Briar and I are tied, because if he beats me, he wins the plate. If I beat him, obviously I win the plate. But the 4 points advantage really doesn't actually help me unless we get down into the the deeper positions. And with how Briar's been riding all year long, and I feel like how I've rode, I really don't picture both of us being off the podium. Anything can happen, but I feel like I got to go out there and win this race, and I know that's what he feels. That's what he's got to do. So for me, it really doesn't matter if Brian would have gotten second or third to help me in the points, because I feel like I got to win the thing anyway. But yeah, the last race, Brian was struggling all year long with his setup and his bikes and stuff like that. I think it was just a little bit of lack of testing and stuff on his end. And I had a bike that I brought out as like a third backup, because we had these 4 miles in a row and we needed to possibly have an extra bike. And then my wife was also the Grand Marshal at Sacramento, and she rode this bike. And we kind of joked about it Saturday night after the first Sacramento at dinner, like, man, we ought to just see if Brian wanted to ride that thing. But he kind of beat me to it first thing in the morning. He texted me, hey man, what's the story with that bike in the Coles? And I just said, well, it's kind of like my backup half-mile bike. Let me make some calls and make sure it's okay. So I called Gary Gray from Indiana and made sure he was okay with him riding it. And then I had to make sure it was okay with Kenny, my mechanic, Kenny Tolbert. And he says, well, it's got some, a little bit of time on it or whatever. I mean, it'd be fine. Go for it. So we helped him out through the day a little bit too, just try to get him a little comfortable with the Olin suspension with Jimmy Wood, and made some adjustments here and there on some things. And, by all means, we never really thought we were going to have like another rider. We were kind of lacking on some wheels and some exhaust. I mean, he basically just handed him this bike and said, there's better we could do for you, but we just can't really shortchange myself in the position we're in. And man, he rode awesome. I mean, it was really cool to see, Brian and I have been really good friends these last couple of years. We tightened everything right back up again. And it was really cool to see him, he was bummed out. That wasn't cool, but it was really cool for him to jump on that bike and go out there and finish second, at his last race of his career, and, go out kind of like that. You know what I mean? Like in 19, he struggled on that Kawasaki. I think he got a couple podiums. And then last year on his team there with the Harleys, he struggled. And then he was struggling all year long, pretty much on his program. So I think in the back of his mind, as any athlete would think, is like, man, is it me? Am I struggling? Am I the guy? Can I not ride anymore? So for him to go out like that and to put that behind him and put that to bed, I think that was probably pretty much the most rewarding for him, as it was me. Like I said, I've got a lot of respect for Brian, and he was probably, honestly, he's probably my biggest rival I had in my career. I mean, he was, we were pretty much in the same exact town, and, used to do the same bicycle routes and bicycle loops and, all that stuff. So that was cool. And him getting in front of Bauman at the very end was, was cool, but more or less seeing him getting second was better.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's just a racing thing. Like, as long as you and Brian Smith, if you're battling one-on-one for a title, that changes the dynamic. A couple years later, it's fine. So who knows? You could be working like this with Bauman 5 years from now. Like, it's just a racing thing, not a personality thing, is what I'm picking up, right?
Yeah, it could be. Never know. I mean, Briar's a lot younger than myself, and it'd be him. I guess it'd probably be him giving me a bike, right?
I don't know if you're ever going to be done, though. Are you ever going to be done? And in your sport especially, man, guys go a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's been guys that go successfully in their early 40s. I'm 35. So I don't know. I mean, a couple people's asked me when I think I'm going to be done, but I don't really have that, even in my mind right now. A lot of it's probably just going to depend on support, sponsorship, and where the sport's at. I think physically and mentally I'll be able to go as, really as long as I really want to. But it's all just going to depend on, what's it going to take to run it every year. And if that's met, it's sponsorship basically.
Okay, last thing. Will you be around the bubble there a little bit on the Friday race at Charlotte? Might you try to make some eye contact?
No, no, no. No, I'm just gonna do my own thing and
Okay.
go there and same routine as always. Like I said, I don't usually try to, make them feel too uncomfortable, I guess. You know what I mean? It's already, it's hard. It's hard at times because like, man, like I'll be scrolling through my phone, you know what I mean, looking at photos, right? Like everybody does that. And I'll come across a photo of like Briar and Shayna when they were like, at my house back in, 2016 or 17 and, just like, it's cool memories to see. And I used to send them to him like, hey man, remember this? But I don't send them to him too much anymore, but I still have a lot of the photos and a lot of those memories. And it's cool, it's cool to see where he's at, and knowing where he was at when he was at my house. I mean, heck, there was one time where he was like, man, I don't even have a ride next year, and I was making connections for him with getting some leathers and helping him write some emails to some sponsors and who to contact. I mean, like I looked after him, you know what I mean? I mean, hell, I think he's still using the guy that is like my financial advisor guy. I think he's still using him, and that's good. Cool. Like no hard feelings with that. It's all good. Like I wish him the best. And when I'm all done racing, I hope he can still keep knocking it down and make a lot of money. And, one day, when he's older and retired, he might say, dude, thanks a lot for everything. It's cool. He doesn't owe me anything. You know what I mean? There's no like, hey man, you owe me this. No, I did it because we're buddies and, that's what you do. Right. I had somebody looking after me, I'm sure, a few times growing up and had a lot of guidance and help. So, to see him doing this well is really cool, but I want to beat his ass.
So that's Jared Mees. Let's turn it to Briar Bauman, always one of the friendliest riders in the pits, but as you will learn from him, it's getting a lot harder to be friendly when you have the pressure, the scrutiny, the spotlight, the target of being the series champ. Okay, so Briar Bauman, the last 2 years you've won the title. I'm sure the first one is tough, and defending it, they always say it's tougher. But I don't actually know. It almost seems like this third one, I'd have to imagine, is going to be the most pressure packed because we get a winner take all. So is this one actually, has it been harder? Will it feel tougher if you get it done in the first two?
So in different ways, yes. In other ways, no. So now, like this year, I think more so, especially on the miles, it's been hard. Like I talk to my guys, my team and stuff, and I come off and it's like, shoot, I feel like honestly, my last like 4 races on the miles have been some of my best mile racing and mile craft I've ever had. Yet I got third. So guys like Sammy Halbert, Jared Vanderkoy, Brandon Robinson, obviously like we didn't even race with Mees. He was just gone. But like those races, like these guys are really, really good. Now we're all on the same bike, where maybe in the past, a guy like Sammy Halbert or Vanderkoy or Robinson wasn't on the same brand motorcycle as me, and they kind of, hindered a little bit. So I think in that aspect, as far as like, hey, we're all on the same equipment. These guys are really, really good, just like me and Jared. And it's showing because they all, most of them have wins or a lot of podiums out of like Vanderkoy. But as far as the pressure goes, it's been so much, I don't know, for me, it's been like way less this year. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's been just more of like going through the motions until I get to the track, where the last 2 years, like every single second of every day, like my mind is just locked in on like, all right, I got to win, or I got to make sure I'm ahead of Jared, or I got to be behind him because it's this many points and I'm just running numbers and I'm not a numbers guy. So it, like a lot of pressure on the last 2 years in that area. And then the riding side, I'm just sending it, where this year, like the riding side's really hard. I haven't, like when I win, I don't win by very much, where in years past I've won by a lot. And it just shows how good everyone is, especially when they're all on an Indian. So
okay, there's less pressure. You're not feeling that every day, or is it you're not as fired up? Like, what is the boundary between like I'm relaxed, I'm not sweating it, but I need to also be motivated? Where is that balance?
It's definitely a little bit different right now.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's been hard. I honestly, like, I've tried to get fired up, and I think my racing has been better. Like I said earlier, my craft is better, maybe not being so fired up. And that's one thing I wanted to focus on a lot this year, where I've had a lot of guys say, hey, we've seen you kind of break things down a little bit more than before, rather than, I mean, honestly, in 19 and 20, like I either went through the air fence or I won by 20 seconds. So I kind of wanted to tame that down, but I also don't have that fire as much during the week. So I think having a rough 4 races has kind of got me fired up quite a bit coming into this last one, and it bums me out we have such a long break. But at the same time, like I'm not bummed that I'm not super fired up, because I think I'm riding just as well, if not better, than I had in the years past. And I think that the wins are counting a little bit more for me than they maybe did prior to these this year. So
It's kind of interesting seeing you go through this, right? Because we see riders in both in flat track, legends, and then motocross, supercross, whatever, that have like title streaks and win streaks. And it starts to feel on the outside like, oh, he's the best guy. He's going to automatically win. Are you learning lessons of how hard it is? I mean, if you go 3 years in a row, that's 36 months of being at the top of your game. Are you seeing how hard that is to actually do?
Dude, and that's like, so it's weird because like I think Shayna and Scott Taylor and a couple others were expecting me to be like this big ball of like just stress right now. And I'm like, guys, I've led the points for 3 years straight, and I want to, like, all I want to do is win. That's the goal. But like going into this last round and knowing that it's a clay half mile, and almost like for the first time in 3 straight years, like now, like I'm at least hoping that Jared's not sleeping at night like I did the last 2 years. Cause now I'm like, shoot, you asked me in 2019 what I need to do. I said, I don't know. I mean, it's cut and dry right now for me. It's you win or you don't win the title. So it's as stressful as it sounds, it's a little bit more laid back for me right now than it was in like 19 and especially 20.
Dude, I do remember that, like talking to you before the finale or the race where you could lock it up at 19, you have this giant points lead.
Yeah.
And you like, we're still sweating it because you didn't know if you should like just try to get 5th or try to win the race, all that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and even in 2020, so 19 was just a big ball of like recklessness. And then 2020 I was trying to have a little bit more of an answer for what I needed to do. And that wasn't good either, because I think I kind of bound myself up too much with the last couple of races. So obviously the biggest thing these last like 4 of the miles, we kind of anticipated Jared to win, unfortunately. And maybe me, I wanted to take second rather than third because the point swing is so huge when from first to third. But for this one, it's like I'm not just trying to break every lap down or every second of what I'm doing. So it's kind of it's actually kind of less stressing than before.
Okay. Hey, you said on the podium there, Sacramento, that you were pretty smoked and you need to take some time off. Is that just the work that goes in, or is that a mental thing?
Do the mental thing, honestly.
Yeah.
So for me, it's no secret the miles are tough, and like I said, unfortunately, and it's maybe not the right mindset. People like some trainers or people be hard on you for saying it, but I mean, Jared, I've won the last 2 titles, but Jared Mees is going to go down as one of the greatest to ever do it in flat track. And his mile game right now is especially like one of those reasons. So going into it, like mentally, I'm just going, hey, I got a podium. I can't have a weekend where like last year I took 8th at Springfield and had no answers why. Like that was just, I was 8th. That was what I was. So just the mental of 4 races in a row, every second, every lap, like I feel like, so I don't look back a whole lot when I race. I feel like I looked back during the mile races more than like ever, because I'm like just trying to see where people are at, how I can position myself. Because the big thing on the miles is positioning. And then on top of it, I'm huge. Like I'm a big dude compared to a guy like Sammy Halbert or Brian Smith. So I'm just a wind sail. So I'm just like, all right, they're going to draft me here. And then it's just mentally. So yeah, I needed the last couple of weeks to kind of like just reset for a second and get back into it. Because 4 straight miles within a matter of, 8 days because of the rain out. Dude, I was just fried. Like end of Sacramento, I was smoked. So
I see. Yeah, here's the thing I guess we need to point out. That's the unique thing about flat track. The difference between the different types of tracks, like you're saying clay half mile and mile, it sounds to you at least it's night and day of your approach, how stressed you are about it, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's so like they're not even, it doesn't even feel like the same type of racing. It feels like honestly for me on a mile, like it feels like if I was going to try and qualify for an outdoor gate, like granted, I'm sure the outcome's a lot different than how it would go that way, but that's how it is for me. I mean, me, my team, everyone around me works so hard for me to get into those positions to battle for a win, or even podiums, just because, like we said, I'm a bigger dude. There's a lot of like racecraft behind the mile. You kind of have to think about what you're doing a lot. Where on a half mile, like ability kind of takes over, and you just, granted, we have some where it's like a lot of bike setup, and you kind of have to play your cards a little bit, but more so, or more times than not, it's like, how good are you on a motorcycle on a clay half mile or on a half mile, rather than, you don't have to worry about someone drafting you, or, that's just, it's so different. So yeah, night and day.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, you feel like, hey, if I'm the best guy, I'm going to win. But on a mile, okay, Jared right now is so far ahead that he's going to win almost regardless.
Yeah,
but in
exactly.
normal circumstances, it's like you could be the fastest guy, but they're still going to draft you, and you can't just
Exactly.
win on
So
speed. Yeah.
At Sacramento, I think me and Jared qualified like a half second ahead of third place.
Yep.
In a half mile, if you're going half a second faster, that means you're going to lap third place on like lap 12.
Yep.
On a mile, I'm going half a second a lap faster than Sammy Halbert, but with the draft and straightaway speed and stuff like that, you can just hang in there and be fine. Like, you can make up a half a second just by coming off turn 2 off the start on someone's wheel that's half a second faster than you. So it's so much more difficult to just be able to break away and do your thing on a mile, which obviously speaks volumes about Mees winning by like 28 seconds the last 3 races. So
okay, so it's situational. Like, a lot of the stress you're under is because specifically at a mile. I know that you've always been the guy that tries to have fun and be social at the races, and then you started saying, like, the last year or so, that you want to kind of be a spokesman for the sport and help grow it. Have you been able to do all that, or when the points are close, is it getting harder and harder to be like, no, I just got to focus on me and points?
It's been tough, honestly,
Yeah.
especially the last like 4. I feel like I haven't talked to too many people. And like this whole championship, and it's funny because every year I'm like, well, shoot, I got another one under my belt. Like, this should, no matter what scenario I get myself into, it should be easier, right? And it's like, no, I just continue to, like, I guess that's just the competitiveness and just the nature of the beast. Is I'm going for my 3rd, but it feels like my 1st. Like I said, I'm a little bit looser now than I was in 2019, but it's still like, you're still just locked in at the track, and it's not like everything's just freed up and you're good, because you've been there before. It's like, no, you still want to win. You're still going against the best dudes. So it's been really tough. I feel like I've done a bad job of staying open during the day, and even like away from the track, just because I just you spend so much time thinking about it when you're there. At least I do, that when I get away, it's just good to just like mellow out, go golf, or go hunt, like shoot my bow, or just do stuff to kind of like shut everyone else out of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And okay, this is what makes it even crazier. So I was talking to Jared 2 days ago. You look at this metamorphosis, like, he and Brian Smith were like best buds. Then they start battling for titles. It turns into like straight up rivalry. Now it's like gone all the way back. So it's totally situational. Like, when 2 guys are fighting for a title, it's going to change. And I think we've seen that kind of happen with you and Jared. Like, it was great a couple of years ago. What is the relationship like at this point? It's got to be tough. You guys are at each other's throat for the number 1.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, I think it's situational based on who it is, really. I mean, unfortunately, Jared kind of has that. Obviously, he now has a track record between me and Brian Smith, that he has a heart. Like, dude, the guy's a grinder. Like, there's like only one thing, and that's win American flat track races. Like, that is his everything, and that's why, like I say, he's going to be one of the greatest ever. For me, I do try and keep it loose. At the beginning of the year, JD Beach was leading the points. Him and I were still really close and talked quite a bit. Brandon Robson led the points, still really close, talked quite a bit. So like I said, it's situational. It's all about how you approach it. I think that he's still like a little bit old school and like knows the grindstone, like, I got to kill everyone. I got to win everything. I don't need friends. I need championships. And I'm a little bit younger, new age, new era, where when I get done battling you to the freaking everything I got, I'm also going to load up with you and go back to my house, probably like Vanderkoy or some of my other buddies, James Rispoli and stuff like that. So definitely situational. I feel, I think everyone has a different approach. Mine is, I love racing. I give everything I have 24/7. I feel like I do better when I don't have the kill approach per se. When I'm loose during the during the time I'm not on the bike. When I get on it, like I get everything out I need to, and then I go home and I don't do that anymore. So yeah, just situational.
Do you think somewhere it will go full circle? Because you and Jared used to be tight. Is it going to be like that? Like him with him and Brian Smith? Do you think like 5 years from now, it'll be like, oh yeah, we're just battling for a title. We're good again. Is that possible?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. We still like it's funny. I take little jabs. So him and I haven't spoken a whole lot in the last couple months, and him and he'll talk to Shayna and stuff, and Nicole and Shayna are good friends. But I'll take little jabs at him and that he knows of, like from when we lived together and stuff like that. And he'll like I can tell he wants to lose it, like laugh, be like fired up about it. So I think once this is all said and done, he'll take the racing cap off and go back to the normal guy, as long as we don't freaking destroy each other on the way. Because him and Brian never had that scenario, but there's been a few points we've almost boiled over. So if we don't get to that point, I think once he's done, I think we should be okay.
So are you guys probably not going to be broing down in Charlotte? Is that probably not the way it's going to work in the
I
paddock?
don't think so. And maybe if he wins this thing afterwards, he'll probably be fired up and want to have a beer or two or something. He'll probably want to do push-ups, but
Okay.
I don't think he's going to try and bro down at all.
What I'm getting at with all this is, look, you love the sport, you love what you do, you really do it not just to win, but you enjoy it. Now that you've experienced life at the top, and then a final round showdown, and all this, man, does it get hard to separate those two things? Like, I love it, it's fun. Is it get to not be so fun with this run like this?
Yeah, it does,
Yeah.
honestly. Like they say there's nothing like your first one, which championship. I think like I spent like my whole career, I've always kind of been on the not the back burner, but you're just until you're winning, you're the underdog, right? So my whole career I was always like a couple steps behind, and then all of a sudden you go to where like every single weekend you got to be the guy. Shoot, I think Atlanta TT was a real like eye opener where I'm like, wow, this kind of sucks. I took third in the dash for cash, and I come off and like I was close, but I wasn't. And Bronson, my brother, was like, "You all right?" And I'm like,
There it is.
He's like what was that? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like I came off third, and they were, we were all pretty close in speed, and he was just like, "Are you gonna be able to win the main?" And I'm like, well, based off how fast JD's going, I don't think so. And he was just like, he couldn't fathom it. You know what I mean? Where he's always been so not open, but just it just shows where the expectation is even out of like my family members. You know what I mean? They understand.
Yes.
Like they start to forget like how great all of these guys are. Even when Bronson would say Bronson beats me in a semi, he's just like, "You're gonna win the main, right?" And I'm like, well, what do you mean? So yeah, it's really hard for 3 years to now, like, oh, you took third in your semi, you didn't make a front row start. Like everyone starts to have a little bit of a meltdown. Yeah, it's definitely a lot different than it was in like 19 or 18 when nobody really expects you to do it. And then when you do it, the world like erupts, where now it's just like the eruption comes when you don't do it. So
You nailed it exactly. It transfers from the joy of winning to just the fear of losing. Like the losing is a problem. If you win, it's like, it's expected to win.
He's supposed to. Exactly.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely more on that side now. But at the same time, I am fortunate because there's a lot of people that do understand how good Jared is. So obviously I'm trying to take over the role that he's had for the last couple of years as like the best dude in the sport. But for me, I think it's a little bit easier on me when Jared wins because they do understand how great he is.
Yeah, and so it sounds to me like, look, the competition's good, Jared's good, the miles are hard, other guys are on good bikes now. So you found a little bit of peace in like, hey, I didn't struggle, I didn't blow it, I didn't do badly. It's just I did really well, but so did other people. Does that give you a little bit of peace there?
Yeah. Like I said, it's a lot of this championship has been so overshadowed. I feel like like the last 4 have overshadowed my year. You know what I mean? Like I've had guys call me and say, "Dude, I think that you've ridden better this year than you have ever." And I'm like, "Shoot, I had 6 wins last year, but I got 3 this year." But they were blowouts. You know what I mean? Like obviously I rode really well, but at the same time, it's like I didn't have to do things that I've had to do this year as far as like break down the track or my bike or my ability. So like, I feel good with what I've done. And like I said about the miles, I feel like my mile races, the last 4 have been really good. It just is overshadowed by the point gap coming down and now losing the lead. So it's one of those deals where I kind of like, I'm still proud and I feel good with what I've done. I just don't have the points lead right now. So it's, there is a lot of peace at that.
You're probably looking forward to the day when that, like, the mile thing seems so much like an experience thing. I mean, it might be harder for you always just because you're taller, but you got to be looking forward to a time when, like, guys like Brian Smith, it doesn't even matter. They don't even have to ride all year and they just know how to run up front of a mile. You got to be looking forward to finally getting to like that level.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that, like, that's one thing. I was laughing. Brian Smith came by me at Sacramento, and I'm like, dude, I haven't seen this guy the whole race. I've had Vanderpool come by. I've had Sammy Halbert. Where has he been? And he probably, I don't know what he did. I haven't watched the race or anything, but I think he just sat back there and just did what someone who knows what they're doing does, where I'm just lifting around the outside and probably exerting way more stress on myself than I need to. So yeah, I mean, I hope to get there. I feel like I'm already in that spot for any other type track. But if we were to go to a cushion mile or maybe a Springfield where it's not, I'm sure you saw like the differences between day 1 and day 2, where it was a lockdown groove the second day, or the first day we were kind of sliding a lot and you can kind of run wherever. I do better on those because it's a little bit more rider ability track more than just like we call it a slot car track, just because you're just locked down and everyone can kind of go really similar paces. So yeah, I hope that I can get to the point where I can just roll out after not riding for a little while and just beat guys on a mile. But I don't know. I don't like those things.
There we go. Okay, so overall, look, this is a stressful situation, obviously on the outside because it's close, but you don't seem like you're stressing too much, I guess, considering the situation.
Yeah, it's weird. It's actually, it's really strange for me right now. Because I try and tell myself like, oh, you got to be fired, like you got to be stressed out. You're like, why are we able to sleep right now at night? And granted, I still do have a little bit of issues, but I think back to last year heading to Daytona. I think there was like a 6-point gap between me and Jared. And we were going to a short track, which I should have had no stress. I'm like, dude, I got Jared on a short track any day of the week. I don't think I slept that whole week, and I had to lead. Where this year I'm like, he rode really good at Charlotte, but I don't know. Like I said, I have a lot of confidence in how well we've ridden the last couple races that I'm excited to get to Charlotte. It's kind of a unique opportunity as far as like if I win this, I look really, really good, and if I don't, obviously people expect me to win championships, but at the same time, I'm still proud of what I've done. What I've done. So yeah, there's some stress, but it's not that same feeling of like last year where I'm just getting sick and not sleeping and just biting my fingernails. So I'm happy about that. It makes me more focused on the race rather than like, what do I got to do? You know, what should I be doing right now? You know, what do I need to do in an hour? So it's been pretty good.
That's cool. Hey, do you get any guidance? You've got Scott Taylor kind of working with you on the business side, but look, we all know Scott Taylor is like Ricky Carmichael's guy. Like he was his main guy in his peak era. Ricky really didn't get into many last ditch title scenario things, but it did happen once or twice. Did he tell you stories about like managing how crazy those weeks must have been and things like that? Because that was as high stress, high drama as it can possibly get those days.
Yeah, dude, he's told us so many Ricky stories. It's actually, it's funny. And then he's even had like, he did it in 19, he did it in 20. I'm waiting to see if I get one, but he's had Ricky text me and be like, hey, dude. Yeah, like I remember the first time he did, I lost it. I'm like, who is this? And I'm like, someone's messing with me. And then finally I figured it was real. But yeah, he does. He tells me all these stories about different things that Ricky gets stressed out and he wouldn't want to run like his what was it, the one? Oh, he didn't want to run a certain set of handlebars. Like he wasn't sure the team would get the handlebars straight and the clamps on the bar mounts. So he would bring his practice bike clamps off of his practice bike and have those put on his race bike at the track because things were getting tight. And he was like, hey, I just know that these feel better than the ones that when I get on just stuff like that. And I'm just like, no way. And he's like, yeah, dude, it's the real deal. It's crazy. And I think that the stress level of those guys is probably quite a bit higher than, I mean, maybe not, but there's a lot of eyes and a lot of people watching on those guys. So I can imagine that they go through a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah, and the whole thing, man, like even the guys like Scott Taylor who were around, like they just had a posse around them. That just always adds a little bit. Like you're saying,
Oh,
like when your brother, yeah,
it was crazy because like he was like, dude, we were at war. Like every weekend, me and Ricky and our guys, like we just walked by like the Reed pit. Like we didn't talk to them. We didn't, if that guy's in Reed's corner, yeah, we don't like him. Even if we were friends beforehand, now all of a sudden he's helping him out because he works for Thor now or whatever.
Yep.
No, like that's not like we're at war. And it's crazy because obviously you look at like it's so much more new era. Because you see Tomac and Roxon flying together to some of the races.
Yeah, it's not like that anymore.
He talks about like Johnny O and how couldn't even like he can't even. He's like they're soft. He's some of the stuff he talks about with those guys, and I'm just like, dude, that is gnarly. So it's cool to see and just hear all the stuff that they kind of went through.
Yeah, and I think what we end up seeing, and that's kind of that full circle thing, is like Carmichael's not like that at all anymore.
No.
Like he's a completely different person than when he was in it. So I've always tried to tell myself, like, don't judge the person when they're in it as a racer. Like you're seeing like you're trying your best to be as normal as you can.
Yeah.
But most people can't be. And you're still probably affected a little bit as much as you're trying not to be.
No, I am. And it's funny, like perfect example, Jared Mees, like, dude, we get along and he's a fun dude away from the racetrack. But you ask any of the not any of the fans, but a lot of the fans or anyone, like, he doesn't have many friends as far as guys at the track because of them only seeing him at the track.
Yeah.
Because he's just so locked in and honestly comes across as a huge dick. But you get him away from the track and he's really cool. He's a good dude. And that's why I try and tell myself, like, all right, I'm going to hate him right now. And then when we get done racing, we'll go back to hopefully being friends again. Because we had some really good times together.
Yep. Don't judge the racers in the moment. You got to do what you got to do at that time.
Exactly.